The men from James? The questions now loom. Who is James? Who are the men from James? And what events led up to this confrontation between the Apostle Paul and the Apostle Peter? And why in the world would St. Jerome say such a thing? They were putting on an act, a show. It was all an act of the apostles. In his commentary on the book of Galatians, St. Jerome, writer of the Latin Vulgate, made the claim that the apostles were putting on a show. Peter and Paul were playing Hamlet. To which St. Augustine of Hippo sent letter number 28, they're numbered, these letters, to St. Jerome, which actually never got delivered. Subsequently, another letter came that was lost for 9 years. But in this letter was basically a kind rebuke, but a rebuke nonetheless. And it actually wound up in the wrong hands, this letter. This letter was sort of like somebody getting a hold of some juicy story off of YouTube and a private selfie or whatnot that caused embarrassment. For as Augustine had questions about St. Jerome's take on this idea that the apostles were play acting, it left him wide open for ridicule. And indeed that letter got into the hands of the wrong people, and it caused contention between St. Augustine of Hippo and St. Jerome. So there was a discourse going back and forth over this event that happened in the book of Galatians. And this having to do with a commentary that was written, and not only St. Jerome, but other people wrote commentaries. And there's another figure here, and his name is Gaius Marius Victorinus. Now, Gaius Marius had also written a commentary on the book of Galatians. And in his commentary, he openly questioned the validity of the book of James. Now, this is a major, serious accusation that was made. When Victorinus had read the book of Galatians, after reading that, if you read the two books side by side, the book of James and the book of Galatians, there was a major question in Gaius Marius's commentary. There was a major question as to the validity of the book of James. Now we look at the motivation for St. Jerome. You see, the holy apostles had to be perfect. There was this thing called papal infallibility, and if an apostle could err, this could shake the whole balance of the whole faith. That these apostles could make a mistake or err was something that was unthinkable, something that he had to deal with. And so St. Jerome said, well, they were just putting on an act, a show, to prove to these Judaizing Christians from James, and we'll get into who James is and what happened here, to show to these Judaizers that the church age had ended, and now it is time. The time of the Jewish believers had ended, and now it was time for the Gentiles, and the Gentiles didn't have to have Jewish law. This was supposedly an act put on by Peter and Paul to illustrate this to these unbending Jews. So to which Augustine was also equally upset, because if you think about it, that's absurd also, because that could bring into the credibility of the apostles if the apostles were lying or telling stories. So Paul, who said, I tell you the truth and I do not lie, was acting out a play? This was somewhat of what was in the response to St. Jerome by St. Augustine. Are you making the very holy scriptures a laughing stock? What was this incident that caused such a reaction from Augustine. And so here we have in play this whole credibility of the Bible and the apostles themselves. Thank you.